Hello, welcome to all therapists, coaches, healers, whoever's watching. I wanted to share today a little something different with you. Sometimes we have to pretty quickly get to finding what really is the core emotion that our clients bring to us. It can be difficult sometimes because there's usually a lot of stuff that surrounds that, the specifics of the situation, the specifics of how they're thinking about the situation. I know a lot of people try to get down to the core thought or the core belief, and those are fine ways of working. But sometimes, getting beyond the thought to what is the person somatically experiencing can give us as much, if not more, information about what that individual may need. So I've come up with a really quick way to get to that core emotion that either needs attention or maybe it's an emotional resource that they haven't been accessing and maybe they need to access a little more. So if someone comes in and they say they're having this situation, this problem, after getting a little rapport with them, I find it's really important to not just pay attention to what they're thinking about the situation, but what specifically are they feeling and where are they feeling this? And this is what I mean. So let's say we have someone who comes in who is having a real tough time with some situation. After we've gotten the specifics of the situation, I find it might be a nice thing to just move into where the emotion may be without causing kind of abreactions or anything like that, to just get information that I can use later or just kind of to know where this person is emotionally, let alone cognitively. So someone comes in, they're having a situation. After we've heard what the situation is and honored their story, I will sometimes ask them, first is, now, when you think about this situation, where do you feel that in your body? When you think about that situation, where do you feel that in your body? Now, some people will immediately have an answer for you. Some will, kind of be a little confused because a lot of times they're trying not to feel something or they don't know how to feel something. Or maybe the problem is they are so much in their head that they're not allowing that somatic information to be experienced. So when you think about this situation, where do you feel that in your body? And then wait for their answer. Most people will say in my chest or in my head or maybe in my stomach. I have had people say my shoulders, my hands, my arms. It does not matter. We're not saying that this means anything other than what they're experiencing right now. So let's just hypothetically say the person feels it in their chest. So we've asked, when you think about this situation, where do you feel that in your body? And they say, oh, I feel it in my chest. And then my next question is that a heavy or a light feeling? I'm only giving them two options here. Is that a heavy or a light feeling? So I'm having them kind of turn inward to examine what that feeling is, but at the same time, it's moving away from the content of the situation just to the feeling. So there's less getting kind of hooked back into that cognitive loop that the person is probably in. And they'll you'll see them do something like this. And they'll say it's heavy or it's light. Again, it doesn't matter. It's just you're getting information. And you say, okay, and we'll just hypothetically say the person says, oh, it's heavy. Okay. If it had to have a color, what would that color be? So this is our next question. If it had to have a color, what would that color be? Now, some people will immediately tell you. Others will be like, I don't know. I guess it could be. I mean, I don't know. They're getting back in their head. So real quickly, go listen. First thing that comes to your mind. Don't worry about it. First thing comes to your mind. Put a little pressure on them in a nice way, and even with the snap. It doesn't matter. First thing comes to your mind. And sometimes they'll say a color that you don't expect. Sometimes it may be something you expect. It doesn't matter what the color is. If that feeling had to have a color, what would that color be? Not what's the color, because you're doing if it had to. So they may initially feel there's no color, but they'll fill it in. So if it had to have a color, what would it be? Let's say the person says it's black. And then the next question is, if it had to have a texture, what kind of texture would that feeling in your chest, that black feeling in your chest have? Now, I'm pulling those things that they've told me into this part now. If it had to have a feeling, if it had to have a texture, what would that texture be? And it may cause them to kind of think for a minute, or they may, again, come up with the answer. Let's say cold and hard. Okay, so you have this black, cold and hard, heavy feeling. And they'll, yes. And then you go, inside that feeling, next question, inside that feeling, what are the two emotions that are swirling around driving that? So inside that feeling, what are the two emotions driving that? And this is where they're already now more associated to the feeling, so then they have to kind of examine it a little bit. So we're getting, it's a bit of a paradox, because we're getting a little disassociation from the feeling, but yet you have to be some associated to figure out what these emotions are. So it's like an illusion of safety from the emotion, but at the same time, it is making them become associated. And they'll think for a minute, and sometimes they'll come up real quick with two, and I only want two. And so let's just say anger and fear. Now, it could be any emotion, all right? We're just kind of concentrating on as if this is the problem situation, anger and fear. And there's no right or wrong answers. And then you go, okay, anger and fear. And then our last question is, which of those two emotions are the strongest? Which of those two emotions are the strongest? And hypothetically, the person says fear. And you go, okay, so fear is the strongest emotion. And at that point, we've gotten to the core emotion. Now, we could have gotten sidelined with the anger. We could have gotten sidelined with the situation. We could have gotten he said, she said. But just real quickly, not only have we gotten to the core emotion, we've also had them kind of experience a little bit and paradoxically disassociate while associating to the emotion. Now, you don't always have to do it with a problem. If you're like a solution-based therapist and you ask something like the miracle question, if tomorrow by magic your problem was no longer there, what would you be seeing, hearing different? What would be different? And then when they tell you what would be different, you go, same kind of thing. When you think about that situation being different, where do you feel that in your body? Okay, well, maybe it's in my head. Okay, is that a heavy feeling or a light feeling? Oh, it's a light feeling. Okay, if it had to have a color, kind of a pink. Okay, and you go down to the emotion. What's the texture? It's kind of a fluffy. Okay, well, what are the two emotions that are driving that feeling? Freedom and happiness. Which of those two are stronger? Freedom. Well, if they've given you in that hypothetical spiel there, freedom as a highest, strongest driver of this whole feeling, to me, what do? That's your resource to help people. Where can they find more freedom from this issue? Where can they find more freedom in general in their life? When you're doing a hypnotic induction, having that core emotion of freedom, wouldn't it be great as you're getting them down to have the freedom to go deeper into trance? And while they're in trance, while you can put in what it's like to free yourself from certain things. So by getting this core emotion, we get a tremendous amount of information but we're not bombarded by excessive information. We get to the core emotion, we can do a lot more than if we spend too much time, I think, in the minutia of the situation. So at the same time, you could have someone tell you what's the core emotion for the bad stuff, and then have them, tell you what the core emotion for the solution is, or what, what's a high value to them that makes them feel good. And then to try and, through the interventions, mix those up so that person can get something, added to this other problem state. So you can do a lot with this. But that, for me, is the fastest, quickest, easiest way to get to that core emotion. All right. I hope you got something out of this. I kind of threw a lot at you real quick, but it's really very simple. And let me know. I mean, if you feel you want to comment below, or if you'd like, please subscribe for any future videos I do. I'd love to hear from you. So good luck working with your patients, clients, and just the population as a whole, because sometimes just a good friend, just talking about emotions, getting to the core emotion, could be helpful too. Take care.